welcome back to yet another episode of GenAI Vlog. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of tutorial of AWS Step Function. So it's a very powerful service on AWS platform that pretty much allows you to do a lot of different things to support development of UI at pretty much enterprise level. So with that being said, let me take your attention to AWS console. So once you log in, you can go to search box and type in step function. And this pink icon here, that's where you click on. So once you click on there, you can hit get started. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to do things a little bit more conventionally, which is to use the left-hand side navigation. I'm going to click on state machine, and then it'll bring me to this page. What I'm going to do is create a state machine. And then in this case, I am going to create from blank, and I'm going to give a name called my state machine test one. Awesome. Now I need to select the machine type. There are two types, standard or express. Depending on what you're looking for, depending on how things scale, I would say standard is probably more robust, but the throughput of standard is of course lower. Express has a higher throughput, but for industrial users, you can use express. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to go with standard. Hit continue. And this is kind of the user interface that you see. On the left-hand side, there are actions. These are sorted using popularity. For example, Lambda, that's obviously a very popular action that you can do. And then there are so many things down there under compute. There's EBS, EC2, things like that. And then for storage, obviously S3, tables, EFS, these are popular storage type. And then for database, you can use RDS, DynamoDB. So these are pretty much action modules that's drag and droppable, right? So what I mean by that is you can literally drag this and put it in here and set it as a state. So that's the actions. Now let's talk about flow. Flow is very important in terms of how you orchestrate different actions, right? Like if there's a choice that need to be made, you can use this button. If there's something that need to happen in parallel, you can drag and drop the second one. You get the idea, right? Map, right? If there's some sort of parallel workflow, pass, wait, success, fail, so on and so forth. And then last but not least, you also have pattern, right? So to process data, there's certain pattern that you can use. So there you go. Once you have this understanding using the design on this user interface, then you can then move on to code, and you can probably even go to Terraform. But for the sake of simplicity, let's stay on design just to make everything a little bit more visually appealing. So number one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a choice here. And then under choice, you actually see this little box here says rule. So that is the decision that this choice has to make in order for this branch to go down here, or the other branch if you want to, depending on what condition you are looking at. So let's scroll down. Let's go to rule one, and then let's say edit. We're going to say add a condition. And then here, what I'm going to do is just leave this as a blank because I don't want to negate anything. And then here, I'm going to do $ dot type. The $ is whatever the payload is, and the dot type is the key, right? The type here is the name of the key. I'm going to set this to be equal to, and then I want the string to be purchase. Let's say I'm processing a purchase order. That's what that's talking about. So I'm going to say save. And then there you go. That's the rule number one. And then same thing, right? I can go to rule number two. So I'm going to go to add another rule. Let's say I want to do that. And then I'm going to add a condition. So in this case, same thing, right? I'm going to check my type. And if my type is equal to a string, such that the string is saying refund, then that goes to another branch, right? This is the second rule. So save condition. And there you go. I have rule one and rule two. So this default rule, I'm just going to get rid of that by hitting delete. So there you go. Once I'm done with the choices and the conditions of these choices, then I can move on to the action item, right? So on the left-hand side, I click on action, and I can drag and drop a Lambda invoke to this state position here. So this gives me the action of the first branch. Show it be if it's triggered. And then you can also drag another one to the branch 2 so that we have two Lambda functions and we're going to invoke them if that condition has been checked. And to make these things unique, obviously I need to give a unique name. So here I'm going to say purchase handler to set as a name for the first Lambda function, whereas the second one, I'm going to call it refund handler. So now once I have a name of this action defined in the state, then I need to pick an actual Lambda function, right? So in order to do that, I'm actually going to create a Lambda function on the spot. So let's create a Lambda function number 1 called purchase handler. And then we're gonna select Python. We're gonna say create, and this gives me a Lambda function. So for simplicity, I don't want a whole lot of things in here. The only thing I want is to change this to result, and then I'm gonna give some sort of string, right? Don't even want JSON. Let's make everything very simple. Purchase process success, right? If we execute this Python code, it will return a body that says status code 200, and the result is purchase process success. So let's save, let's deploy this Lambda function, and then let's test it. We can just send in a test 1, and then in this case, don't really need any body because we're not taking anything from the event, right? So anything here is fine. We can just say save as test 1, and then invoke it. This will be able to give us that result that's being printed here. Great, so that's function number 1. Awesome, let's go ahead and create function number 2. So create a Lambda function. Here, I am going to say refund handler. Same thing. For the runtime, I'm going to choose Python and create a function. Once this function is created, I'm going to do the same thing, right? By make the payload a little bit more easier, we're just going to have a result. And then in that result, we're going to say a string that says refund processed success. Okay, Control S, and then deploy it. Once it's deployed, let's go ahead and test this. Just make sure everything is okay. So give a name test 1. This body doesn't really matter because the Python function here does not take anything from the event. So invoke it, you should be able to give us a 200 code that says result, refund process success. Great. So now that I have these two Lambda functions defined, I can go back to the step function and define the content of that action. So this is a Lambda action called purchase handler. I have not selected the function. So I'm going to go in here and select purchase handler. That's the function that we just created. Great. So once we assign that there, this is going to be the Lambda function that this action invoke. And of course, if you want to be fancy about it, you can check the input output. You can check the variables if you want to. Most importantly, you can check the error handling. I find this very helpful because it pretty much gives me the way of controlling the things that goes into the errors that we can check so that if things break, there's some sort of a traceability. Now let's go to refund handler. And again, this is a state that is a Lambda invoke, but we have not selected which Lambda function. So we're going to go in here and type in refund. And this refund handler is the one that we just created. So click on that. And there you go. That should be assigned to this Lambda function so that we can invoke it. And before I continue, I just want to say that under the action of Lambda, the important thing you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the payload, right? What is the schema? What is the contract to allow you to communicate with the user? This payload help you identify what that is. You can, of course, customize it using JSON if you want to. Now I want to finish this transaction record, right? Now after the purchase handler and after the refund handler, I want to be able to tell the world that this is done. So the way to do that is to use another Lambda function. So let me drag this. This user interface actually allows me only to put it in one place. As you either put on the left branch or you put on the right branch. So that's not what I want to do. I want both of these Lambda functions to point to the same state, right? So I can do that just by drag and drop. I'm going to put that on the left-hand side, and I'm going to point the refund handler to this next Lambda function. So once I put it there, just for the time being, I'm going to call it result handler. So result handler, that's the name. And then I'm going to click on this one on the right-hand side to point it to the result handler. So what I mean by that is I need to scroll down. I need to click on next state. And then instead of going to the end, I can select result handler because this is another thing that's being implemented already. I'm just pointing this action to the result handler action. So there you go. This finishes up the diagram and we have a complete picture. But since this is a Lambda function, I need to create a third function, right? So let's go ahead and do that. This third Lambda function, I'm going to call it result handler. And same thing, I'm going to choose Python as my runtime. And then I'm going to hit create. Awesome. So now that this function is created, let's go ahead and edit the script a little bit. In this case, I don't want to just respond some random things. I actually wanted to give me something that's based on the event. So I need to do something here. In the to-do item, I'm going to say step function result equal to event result. So whatever is a previous payload that comes in here, I'm going to go ahead and grab result. That's the key. And then whatever's in that result, I'm going to save it as a step function result in this variable on line 5. And then you get the idea. So here I am going to grab that and then put it in my body. So I'm going to get rid of the JSON and just make my life easier. I'm going to say step function result and add an underscore result here. So this, if implemented correctly, I should be able to give you something back. So let's save it and deploy it. So let's see if we can test this in the console. Let me make up a key value that says result. For example, maybe I have a result here, and then here I'm going to say XYZ. So let's go ahead and save this, and then let's invoke it. Let's see what we got. Great. So this is the response, and then it successfully got XYZ from the payload, right? The payload is in the event. We grab the result. The result is one of these keys in the JSON payload, and it says XYZ. We grab the XYZ, and then we concatenate it in the string in the body. So that's why the body here says XYZ result here. Awesome. So let's make sure this is deployed. And then once this is done, we have all three Lambda function ready. So let's go back to the step function, and then let's make sure that the API argument is result handler. So let's click on that, and we should be ready. So one last thing before we continue is to check the definition. So if you toggle the switch on and off, you'll be able to see the definition. And this is what a definition looks like. It's a programmatic approach to physically see each component of your state machine, which is a workflow in a step function. And then if you want to be fancy about it, like I mentioned before, if you want to go on Terraform, you can take this and create your own Terraform and bring these service onto the cloud using programmatic approach, which we can probably do that in a future video. But for time being, we're going to do this in a way that's visually appealing so that it's easier to understand. So once we have all services set up and ready, we can then go ahead and create a workflow. So we're going to hit create. Okay, after a lot of digging, I realized what the problem is. So if you go to this condition and then you say add condition, so this is going to use default JSONata expression. So what that means is the original $.type no longer work anymore. So if I get rid of this, the hint actually says $states.input.key. So that's why you need to physically enter $states.input.key. And the key is whatever key you want to use in the JSON payload. So let me save the condition and then let me test it for you guys. Let's say I have an input payload that's type is refund, right? So right off the bat, we know it should be going to the second Lambda function, the refund handler, right? The reason we say that is because in this rule, the condition says the input type needs to be equal to refund, and the refund is a string. So let's test that out. If I hit start test, it should be going to refund. Good. Now, if I turn this into purchase and I run again, it should return purchase. And this JSONata expression allows us to do that. So once I'm happy with that test, I know that this payload is going out the right way I do. I'm going to apply changes and I can hit save. And then this state machine I should be able to upload it. Now let me go back to test again. Let me try to get past this error by starting a new execution. Here I'm going to say purchase. Make sure there's no typo. The key is type. And let's start an execution. So it's going to hit choice. And then hopefully it will hit purchase handler. Boom, done, done. Okay. And the logs are down here. These are events. Now let me start a new execution and let me change this to refund. That hopefully will go into a different route. So I hit start execution. Now it should be going to refund. Now the arrow here, this blue color that's in progress, that's refund rate. After that, hopefully it will hit result and we should be able to see something coming out. I think I pause it here by checking this box. Let's uncheck that and let's save. That's my fault. For some reason, I did this by mistake. Let's go back to the execution. Let's try to hit the next one again. New execution. This is refund. So let's start. Boom, there you go. So now these two Lambda functions being invoked and we are all set. Wow, that's quite of a detour for me to show you guys all of this. But I think end of the day, we did it. So hopefully this video sheds some light of how you can stitch together a couple of Lambda functions in a state machine under a step function. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like.